Hi there, Duke fans. Welcome to the great DBR experiment, DBR Bites. This is episode number 2. At least it's supposed to be. Actually, it's number 3. The first one was number 0. I'm not going to get into the numbering thing. It doesn't matter. This is an episode of DBR Bites featuring me, Jason Evans, and I'm joined by Sam Klein on this one. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
All right, we're keeping these tight, right?
That's the plan, man. Yep.
Okay. I'm ready.
Right. Don't need a lot of preamble. Not a lot of setup. Hey,
Let's do it.
We're talking about the bench, talking about the bench under Jon Scheyer. And I want to start it with this, because the other day we were talking a little bit about Jaden Schutt. And, so many Duke fans have asked, why isn't Jaden Schutt playing more? This team is struggling with outside shooting. We appear to have a kid who, we have a kid who is touted by many as the best outside shooter in the entire high school class, who committed to Duke and is sitting over there and not getting much playing time. And I said, you know what? I was at the Clemson game, and in the post-game news conference, I asked Jon Scheyer a question, and my question was not, why isn't Jaden Schutt getting to play more? And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should have asked about Jaden Schutt. So I got on the Monday edition of the ACC coaches teleconference, and I got to ask Jon Scheyer a question. And I went out and I just went ahead and said it. I said, John, why isn't Jaden Schutt playing more? Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, well, Jason, Jaden's done a great job in practice. I can tell you after every game we're evaluating it all. And Jaden's been a guy who I really believe in deeply. He's, has the ability to shoot from beyond the three. And that's something we're going to consider and talk about, because he's capable. And you're looking at everything. You're looking at all the options. And, you don't want to make it just about the 3-point shooting. I mean, we've won games with shooting poorly from three. We still have to play to our strengths. Other guys have played well and, have been ready to play. But Jaden's a guy that has to stay ready, just like anybody. Believe in him. And, we'll see what happens here moving forward.
Now, Sam, I think that answer was fairly predictable. It's both accurate and predictable, which was Jon saying, hey, we're evaluating things all the time. And Jaden's working really hard in practice and getting better and better. And we will always look, at every opportunity for ways to improve this team. It's exactly what I thought he was going to say. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and if there's a few things that Jon Scheyer has taken out of the Coach K playbook, it's, I'll give you just enough to be interesting, but not enough to really tell you what's going on. And we know that the program is being a little more open about stuff, but I imagine that internally this is probably one of the most frustrating things outside of the injuries to the guys who were definitely expected to play big minutes this year. We now obviously have to add Jeremy Roach to the list of Lively and Whitehead. But with Jaden Schutt, I am sure coming into the season, given that we didn't hear any, talk of redshirting, there wasn't any of that stuff coming in. I imagine that Jon Scheyer thought, man, I hope this kid is ready to play and get minutes off the bench, whether that's in like a Grayson Allen role from his freshman season, maybe even, or as much as maybe the role that Andre Dawkins played on that national championship team, where, he was a late add to the roster. He reclassified to come in and was really spelling all three of the guards, Scheyer, Smith, and Singler that year, who were basically all expected to play close to 40 minutes. So
right.
Scheyer is trying to, figure out what Schutt can do. And as we said on the last show, there is some sort of minimum level of performance that I'm sure he's looking for in practice before he says, yes, it's time for Jaden to get into the rotation. I'm frankly surprised that we haven't seen more of it, but this feels like one of those times where Scheyer is trying to, whether it's motivate, whether it's, whether it's just trying to be honest with himself about what he's seeing in practice. There does seem to be some method to this, because, Jacob Grandison's minutes are fluctuating. Jalen Blake's minutes are fluctuating. There was a period where it was like Jalen Blake's is definitely a starter. Jalen Blake's is playing crunch time minutes. And we are just not seeing that with Jaden Schutt.
Yeah. And the other thing to note is, and I feel like I need to say this virtually every time we have this conversation, we're not there in practice. We don't know how these guys are performing. Sam, I think it was you who pointed out on the last podcast when we were having a little bit of this discussion. You were like, look, watching guys in games is just a tiny snapshot compared to what the coaches get when they see these guys in practice, when they see these guys, just in general workouts and other stuff like that. So for us to be sitting here saying, Jon, you should be playing Jaden Schutt, we don't know what we're talking about. I want to be 100% clear. We don't know what we're talking about compared to the knowledge that Jon Scheyer and the rest of his coaching staff has about these players.
I want to throw a few numbers at you because I don't know if we've actually discussed this in depth.
Oh, this will be interesting because I have a ton of numbers as well. Give me yours first.
Well, I'm curious if you pulled the KenPom bench minutes numbers.
Sam, we think alike. We think exactly alike. Go ahead.
All right,
give me yours, and I'll see if you have anything to say that I wasn't already going to say.
How far back did you go? That's the first question I ask you.
Okay, so we should set this up for folks. This year in 2023, Duke is giving 34.1% of its minutes to the bench, a little over 34%, and that is a pretty historically high number for the Blue Devils. I went back in 2020. We gave 35.6% of minutes to the bench. That was the year, Vernon Carey, Trey Jones. But other than those two guys, we're giving minutes to Alex O'Connell, to Joey Baker, to Javin DeLaurier, to Jack
Justin
White.
Robinson.
Justin Robinson came on late in the year. Actually, yeah, in a big way. That year is an outlier, though. I went back all the way to 2009. In 2009, I found another year where Duke was above 30% bench minutes. So again, this year, 2023, we're at 34%. In 2020, we're a little above 35%. 2009 and 2012 and 2009 are the 2 years the Duke was also above 30%. Other than that, we're all in the low 20s in terms of percentage of minutes given to the bench. Did you go back further than 2009?
I didn't go back farther than that, but I did also want to give the context that the KenPom always gives you the raw number and the rank relative to the country. The other thing to note here is that it's not. I didn't check the trend over time because he publishes the average over time, so I didn't check the way that the trends are going. But in all of that time,
I'll tell you because I did check the trend. Pretty consistently, there's not a different trend in college basketball.
Bench usage is not going up or going down.
Bench usage almost every year is about 30 or 31% of minutes. The average NCAA team gives 30 to 31% of minutes to their bench. It almost never comes in below 30%. There are a couple of years where it spikes to like 31.3 or 31.5, but it's pretty consistent that teams give about 30 to 31% of their minutes to their bench.
So with that context, as of right now, Duke is 97th in the country in terms of bench minutes usage, which, as you note, their bench usage is wow. I am having a very hard time saying bench usage. That's a tough phrase. Tough phrase. Oh my goodness. I didn't do my.
I'm editing none of this out. This is all.
I didn't do my vocal warm-ups today. So Duke is 97th in the country this year. That year, the other year that you mentioned, 2020, Duke was 75th in the nation, basically in the same range. In all these other years, they've basically been in the 300s with a couple years in the 200s. So when we've talked this year about how much slower the Blue Devils are playing this year relative to most prior years, and that is a change that we've adjusted to. Bench usage is also relative to the rest of the country much higher than it usually is. So Duke is in the top 100 for only the second time in this, let's say in the one and done era. Including 1 year of Jon Scheyer and all those other years of Coach K. Usually Duke is in the bottom half of the nation in terms of bench minutes. And we're seeing that, right? We're, like we said, we're seeing guys like Jacob Grandison play real roles. Jalen Blake's in, other than his couple of starts, the games where Tyrese Proctor has gone to the bench, where Jeremy Roach was healthy. It's not like he was gone forever. Look, Ryan Young wasn't supposed to be a starter this year, and the situation with him is maybe pumping up the bench usage more than it would have. But even going into the season, we said this team is going to be deeper. So what's the conclusion from this, Jason? What I take from these numbers is that Scheyer is trying to figure out lineup combinations that work. I don't think we've gotten to a point yet where we know who's coming in next. It feels like it's pretty fluid game to game. And I think it further supports our theory that we don't have, hard evidence for, that Jaden Schutt has not cleared the bar yet for Jon Scheyer. And
Right.
Christian Reeves, I don't think we have to get into the discussion of what was the plan with Christian Reeves this year, but Christian Reeves has not cleared the bar. Cale Catchings has not cleared the bar. And that is something that they're doing in practice. And I am sure that there is a development plan for each of them, that you don't need 5 assistant coaches to run a practice, but you do need that to work with all these guys individually and figure out like what is their plan here. So I am sure that is happening. The thing that I'm most curious about is, well, I guess in the near term, I'm curious if Schutt is going to get any minutes down the stretch. My guess is not, because if to this point he hasn't demonstrated it, the competition mostly gets harder through the rest of the season. And, assuming that the Duke is in the NCAA tournament, they're probably now looking at something more like a 5, 6, 7 seed, which means that, they're maybe favored in their first game, but they're not favored after that. So Duke will have a lot more games at the end of the season where they're not favored, where they're playing tougher competition. I don't know if that's the time to insert new players. We always have to go back and think about the Grayson Allen situation from 2015, because it's a notable exception to this. Justin Robinson, I think, would have stood out even more from 2020 if that season had continued to play. But generally speaking, Duke doesn't, and most teams aren't inserting new players into the lineup in significant minutes or even spot minutes late in the season. I don't think we're going to see much of Jaden Schutt down the stretch. So how is Duke going to deal with their 3-point shooting going forward? And then what is the conversation like with Jaden Schutt after the season? Because you could see this going both ways, where either he says, look, I got screwed here. Like I didn't get minutes and I thought I was going to get minutes. Something tells me that Jon Scheyer did not tell Jaden Schutt that he was going to get big minutes this year, even if, I'm sure he's playing less than he thought he was going to. So does he come back next year and say, all right, like I had a tough year. I didn't get in the games. I didn't demonstrate what I needed to. It's time to, whatever it is, like play better defense, work on my body, whatever it is in the off season. That's going to be a fascinating storyline for me this spring and summer.
All right, so I got a lot to react to what you just said, but believe it or not, we are going long enough on this edition of Bites that we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back from the break, do bench minutes correlate to success in NCAA basketball? I'll answer that question in just a moment. All right, we're back. And Sam, first thing I want to do is react to a little bit of what you're talking about specifically regarding Jaden Schutt, because that's the launching off point for this. And I'm inclined mostly to agree with you that I think that he's probably not going to find the role that I think a lot of us hoped and think, maybe he could make a difference for this team. And I'll tell you why I think it's unlikely. I looked at another set of numbers when I was going back historically through those Duke teams, as you and I were discussing the percentage of bench minutes. I was looking at the number of guys who play more than a third of the minutes. Number of guys who play at least 33% of games translates to about 12, 13, 14 minutes per game. That's my cutoff point. This current Duke team has 9 guys playing 35% of minutes or more. That's a big number. So what we're talking about with Jaden Schutt is, hey, do we want our depth to go all the way to 10? Do we add one more guy to it? Jeremy Roach is coming back from injury. I mean, the notion that we would have, because we're going to have to incorporate 70% of one position's available minutes at least to Jeremy Roach as he returns. The idea that we would also find some time for Jaden Schutt, to me, I just don't think it's going to happen. But like I said, 9 guys playing 35% for Duke. I went back through history and looked at that. Last year, we only had 6 guys play more than a third of minutes.
Because I didn't look at this, Jason, before you give us the answer here, I can't imagine that there's been a year like in the Ken Pom era when Duke played 9 guys.
So I'll admit I didn't go all the way back to 2000, because I'm like, at a certain point, what are you really learning?
You've proven that this thing is an outlier.
I went back to 2009 again, There is no year. I'm going to repeat this. There is no year where Duke had more than 7 players play more than 33% of minutes. This year we have 9 doing it. The year that comes the closest is that 2020 year we talked about, that 2020 season where 35% of minutes came from the bench. Duke had 7 guys playing 33%, and then we had Javin DeLaurier and Alex O'Connell, who both were just a little under. They were at like 30 and 32%.
And some of
I
this
guess
is
you can
driven by
count that.
injuries, right?
Yes.
Because you have the Kyrie Irving year, you have the Zion Williamson year, you have Emile Jefferson had an injury. So Duke has had more injuries, I think, this year than like more, lasting, long recovery in season injuries to key players, because there's now 3 players this season for Duke who have sustained injuries that have, limited their minutes in certain games. But to your point, though, even considering that, it's still an outlier.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, as I looked, I mean, for the most part, it's 5 or 6. It's really 6 guys. 6 is the number. We always joke Coach K, gets down to his starters and 1 sub. And that's what the number almost always, last year it was 6. In 2021, it was, and again, this is number of guys playing a third of games or a third of minutes or more, 33% or more. In 2021, it was 6. In 2018, it was 5. In 2017, it was 6. 2016 was, I can go on and on and on. It's almost always 6 guys. So again, we're at 9 guys this year. Those of us who are complaining about Jaden Schutt's minutes, how many more minutes do you think we should be playing guys that we, because we're distributing things so much? And then the other part of this, Sam, and I promised this before we went to break, is there a correlation? Is there anything you can find if you go ahead and look, hey, who are the teams who play their benches the most and who are the teams that play their benches the least? And does either factor relate to a team being good or bad? And I found 0 correlation. The teams that use their bench the most this year, here they are: Northeastern, Dartmouth, UMass, and Georgia. The teams that use their bench the least, Notre Dame actually uses their bench the least of any team. Marshall, Rice, and Delaware, the others. And so the other thing to look at is like Houston, Alabama, Tennessee, UCLA, Purdue. The teams that are at the very, very top of the sport this year, the best teams in the land, they're all within like a point or 2 of average bench usage. All those teams are like right at, 29, 30, 31% bench usage. So it would appear being average is a sign of the best teams in terms of bench usage. And then the last thing I wanted to note, Sam, is that it's worth noting that it's only mid-January. And we alluded to this earlier. You were talking about, the games are going to get more competitive. The great unanswered question is whether Jon Scheyer is going to squeeze things for his bench even more as we get down the stretch and we get into more and more competitive ACC games. Because that's what we saw Coach K often do. We would have years where back in November and December, we'd go, oh, it looks like Coach K's playing his bench more. And we'd suddenly hit February and you'd be like, there are only 6 guys playing. That happened all the time. And we don't know whether that's going to be the case with Jon Scheyer. I've seen some signs that he may be leaning that way. Look at Kyle Filipowski's minutes. He was pretty much consistently in the mid to upper 20s in terms of minutes played throughout November and December. The past 3 games, he's been at 32, 35, and 35 minutes. Mark Mitchell, past 3 games, 35, 35, 28. Tyrese Proctor. Now, look, I know Jeremy Roach being out has really impacted this, but Tyrese Proctor's minutes, past 3 games, 32, 27, 37.
And this is all, Jason, especially Filipowski. It's interesting that that's happening at the same time that, we're talking about him like hitting until this past week, he was like hitting a bit of a wall, right? He was slowing down. Even though he's scoring points, his efficiency is going down. But Scheyer thinks that, that's still the best formula, is to have him on the floor, even if he's not hitting shots at the same clip that he was earlier in the season.
Yeah, exactly. So look, we will see how it progresses over the next couple of weeks as to whether or not Jaden Schutt gets any time at all, and whether or not Jon Scheyer, begins to tighten the rotation. It's something really interesting to look at with this Duke team, and we'll see how it progresses. But that's going to wrap it up here for episode number 2 of DBR Bites. Sam Klein, thank you so much for joining me and chatting about Duke's bench and about, whether or not Jon Scheyer is going to play things the same way as Coach Scheyer. I think so far it looks like he probably isn't, but we will see how it all plays out. Again, we will be back with you, if there's major news to talk about regarding any Duke Blue Devil team. And for Sam, not for John, for
I
Sam.
didn't know that I was Jon Scheyer. I think he's got like a foot on me.
Yeah, exactly right. For Sam, I'm Jason. DBR Bites wrapping it up. Here's the Duke Band. Play us out. Take us home.